New indication tonight as the White House sees a path to changing the subject matter. Problem solvers are changing their subject matter as well. Temple of Doom is doing a spin game. Everyone's doing a spin game except us. So the question is, where is the truth? What's really going on with your second stimulus package? What are the current deal amounts? And why are those Republicans, those 20 Republicans, causing so much problems? This is Evenings LALATE. Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Evenings LALATE, an exciting, great night in which the weather is keeping relatively cool, but it will be very hot here in LA in about 3 days. So hope you're safe and good wherever you are. Go to the Fun's channel, subscribe, because we're trying to reach 290,000 subscribers and become part of this community tonight, which is pretty windy. It's sort of picking up. Also, like this video. There's a lot of stuff developing tonight, and I will be going over it right with you. Tonight, I will be going over why the deal offer from Steve Mnuchin was so confused and so baffling to so many people. And what did he and his team allegedly do on Sunday? Oh, yes. Next, I'll be going over the shocking twist and pivoting for the word repurposing. And what does that mean about your stimulus money? Third, the blame game. Full swing. It's in the final stretch, 24 days before the election, 23 days before the election, and the blame game is hitting harder than ever. Fourth, the problem solvers, under fire for giving a false narrative and continuing to pitch things that really aren't true. And finally, the GOP, those 20 senators who are really just under fire for their crazy comments that ultimately may end their time in office. All right, let me get to the breaking news. The breaking news tonight is that for the first time in upwards of nearly a month and a half, we have some numbers, ironically. They're not from Mr. Human Calculator himself, Larry Kudlow, but actually from Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin, I am alleging, leaked his numbers to NBC News, and his numbers were detailed in a very thorough, very positive Treasury type news article that went through what he had offered the Temple of Doom in his $1.8 trillion offer. Remember, the problem solver is 1.5. Steve Mnuchin days later came in at 1.6. Then late last week, I think it was on Friday, he offered 1.8. It was rejected by the Temple of Doom within less than 8 hours. But we never saw what his numbers were, and we certainly have never seen her numbers. But now we know that they were actually quite good. First, stimulus checks, $1,200 individuals. Okay, still the same. $2,400, still the same. Okay, but adult dependents, by the wording of the NBC News article, would get $1,200. Excuse me, yes, $1,200. Finally, adult dependents would get a full stimulus check, which is the first time we have heard this since the first HEROES Act. As you know, Nancy Pelosi has cut the adult dependents check to $500. She's brought all dependents down to $500. Well, Mnuchin's latest offer was to leave only children at $500, but adult dependents at $1,000. If you read the NBC News article $1,200. If you read that NBC News article that way, so all adults $1,200, all children $500. That's incredibly great news. The other issue that was really great news is that Steve Mnuchin said that he was still at $400 a week for FPUC, and that he was retroactive, but that he was taking it out further in the future. Now, ultimately, I found a problem with that issue, which is that many people were unemployed in July and August and may not be unemployed in January because some of them have come back to work, in recent weeks. Remember, unemployed means literally unemployed. You could work in the holiday season at Walmart, for 10 hours, and suddenly you're no longer unemployed. You can't get FPUC. And so it doesn't make sense to take away people's money that they clearly need for the month of July. What am I saying? His FPUC retroactive date is not to the date at which FPUC expires. It's to September 12th, which is weird. It's a weird date. It's 1 week after her offer, which is September 5th, which is also a bad date. They should all be to the date at which FPUC expired. But what his new offer was more positive about was it was extending FPUC 3 weeks into January, 3 weeks later into January, so we get more weeks of it, which is good, but ultimately you could lose those weeks of July. Next, the big thing that it almost seems like he's been watching this channel. How many times did I tell you, Steve, why are you offering $200 billion for state and local when Mark Meadows offered $300? Well, finally, after saying that on this video, so I'm really itching. Oh, it's getting cold all of a sudden. Was that Mark Meadows' prior offer, and perhaps my recordings of the subject matter every night, brought Steve Mnuchin to $300 million. So he raised state and local to $300 million, which is basically 1 year of grant money. With that, the Temple of Doom still rejected it. Well, tonight, the reaction to that article was very positive. The reaction to the article basically, in my allegation was leaked by Mnuchin, showed that his numbers were good. His numbers were good, and that they weren't something to reject. They were not something to call off the negotiations about. They weren't something to use this horrible, not killing the virus and not getting realistic, these horrible words that the Temple of Doom uses. It didn't make sense. But what is going on tonight is a new pivot, and that new pivot is repurposing. Who was the first one that used that word? Oh, yeah. I told you upwards of 3 weeks ago, or maybe it was 2 months ago, that there was $300 billion in CARES Act 1 money sitting around that the president could repurpose for the purposes of executive orders for stimulus checks. That there was an additional $200 billion in CARES Act 1 money that's sitting in PPP money that is unaccounted for, that can be repurposed for the purpose of enhanced unemployment benefits. How many months of recordings have I made about that? How many times have I used the word repurpose? How many times have I told you it's in PPP money? How many times have I told you it's in SBA Javita Carranza's scarf collection? It's under her scarf closet. How many times have I told you where it is, how much money is it, and what needs to be done with it? Well, tonight, that's the new swing, the new spin for the White House. They're calling upon the Temple of Doom and Congress to repurpose that expired PPP money. First, it confirms the money's there. 2, it confirms that the money is in SBA at PPP. 3, it confirms that there's enough money. 4th, it confirms that the money would cover stimulus checks and FPUC. But 5, it's turning into a deflection game about your executive orders. The president can do this without the act of Congress. So the entire thing of asking Congress to send out money he doesn't need Congress's authority to do is a deflection game. And what I want to make very clear to you right now is the analogy to this is LWA 1.0. FEMA had money. It was repurposed for the purpose of enhanced unemployment benefits. Understand, money in FEMA is not for employment money. FEMA is the federal it's for disaster relief. FEMA is a disaster relief agency. It doesn't hold unemployment benefits in its coffers. It doesn't have unemployment benefits in its bank account. So when President Trump found FEMA money sitting around in FEMA, he repurposed it for LWA. Tonight, he has money that is sitting in SBA he wants to repurpose for stimulus checks that is originally for PPP. He does not need act of Congress. What he's doing is a false narrative, a blame game, a deflection for him not to do executive orders. Why is this blame game deflection being done? I don't know. Purple Power, do your thing. The blame game is hitting in high strings tonight. You have Pelosi saying her blames. You have the one I just told you about, blaming the Congress on not doing a repurposing of PPP money. And now we have the problem solvers. The problem solvers are doing a false narrative as well tonight. The problem solvers, who haven't really been solving problems lately and have been a little bit of a problem themselves, have been under fire from this channel from for literally just announcing things via press releases and fancy logos and fonts and not having the balls to actually write a bill and put it on a congressional floor. It's very nice to continually do press releases with cute little colors, but how about you write a darn bill and put it on the congressional floor? You know you are paid to do that. That is your job. Your job is not to issue press releases. Well, no one of the problem solvers has had the balls to actually do it, and now they're not even doing that. Now they're spinning false narratives. Their latest false narrative tonight is they retweeted the NBC News article which explained Steve Mnuchin's $1.8 trillion offer last week that was rejected by the Temple of Doom 24 hours later. And they said, oh, this is really positive news. There's new progress and there's new and negotiations are resuming. This is wonderful. And Medea's going to show up at your wedding. I mean, it's really, I mean, come on now, problem solvers. Do we not see this idiocy of that comment? First of all, the NBC News article is about an offer that was rejected. Second, it was rejected based upon Nancy Pelosi's bill offer, which has not changed since July. Third, she's not negotiating on her offer since July, so you're saying she's negotiating. She's never negotiated since July. She said, I'm here and I'm not moving. Next, to claim that the negotiations have proceeded or continued since the rejection on Friday, that's also untrue. Steve Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi have not had negotiations since her rejection of his $1.8 trillion offer. So it's this type of spin, and you wonder what's going on. Here's my opinion. Again, this is opinion, not fact. My opinion is that as stimulus negotiations for purposes of legislative action have fallen apart, everyone is ready with their fake narratives because they're going into the polls, their names are on the ballots, and they're trying to spin the fake narrative of I'm doing really good work and I'm working really hard and I'm talking, I'm negotiating, or that I'm not to blame, he's to blame, or she's to blame. It's turning into a lot of talk, and it's not turning into a lot of action. And ultimately, what they're trying to do is spin it as best as they can spin it for political purposes. And we're not buying it. Next, the GOP. Oh my goodness. Those 20 Republicans have literally become sort of like the scandal crew that, you know, the friend of the housewife that no one really likes. These 20 GOP members that no one knew their names until this weekend. And I detailed them in all the videos except this one. Well, it's Lee and Blackburn and Lamar Alexander and another one whose name I forgot. They have made clear they are not giving you a penny. But they not only made it clear to you, well, they called the White House, and they called the White House on Saturday, and they called the White House again, and they said, you're not doing 1.8 trillion, you're not going above 1.8 trillion, you don't represent our party, and you need to stop talking about these insane, ridiculous numbers. Now, this was not something like, we just don't like what you're doing. This was basically a GOP threat. Stop cannibalizing our party. You're not doing these insane numbers, and no one in the group is supporting it. The question that we all sit here and wonder, though, tonight is that of those 20 Republican senators, are any of them coming back? There's polls all over the place that say the Senate is going to be washed thin and that all incumbents are going to be thrown to the street. There are reports all over the place that the president is in deep trouble and is not going to be reelected because he's too far behind the polls. There are reports all over the place that a flip of both the Senate and the presidency for purposes of stimulus will cause a lot of confusion. If you haven't watched the videos for today, let me explain procedurally what happens. When a senator is not reelected in November, well, guess what happens the next day? They show up to work. They actually have to work from November to January until the next person comes into office. During that period of time, it's called the lame duck period. And so ultimately, we're sitting around here to guess what lame ducks are going to do for our stimulus relief if they lose in the re-election because they were cheap people all along. Oh, boy. Oh, Lord. you see the issues and you see the problems erupting right away. This is why your focus has to be on executive orders. Has to categorically be on executive orders, because apparently someone in this administration is now trying to say, you know what? I've watched that kid on YouTube. I've seen his new hairstyle. It's time to not talk about executive orders. It's time not to talk about repurpose in the context of executive orders. Let's talk about repurposing for the purposes of blaming Nancy. And let's say she's supposed to repurpose, we won't repurpose, and let's see if that purpose works. Ugh. To the executive orders. Come on already. Let me answer some of your 896 questions from last night. Stony, I just get so tired and aggravated. 95 Lewd, why the hell should they care? Seriously, this is like a bad movie. Trina, Be Young, wise up, President. You cannot lose this game if you don't play games. Kimberly, they're acting like kids. Linda Lee, we need executive orders now. Aranya, this is really not funny. Lorraine, there was never negotiations. If Trump does an executive order, most people will not get it before the election. It should have been done last month. I've been saying that for a while. Regina, I hate all these morons. Thank you for your comment, Regina. Pat B, get up, Mr. President. Listen to your American people. Do executive order. Johnny Arargo, this isn't $5 gazillion. The states and crooks have already stolen it. Anna B, we should all meet together at LALATE for a Purple Power Party. I don't think there's anything to celebrate about yet. Louise Hoffman, they should all be concentrating only on stimulus. GP, we won't have to worry about this once the elections are announced. Not true. Then you really have to worry about it. Peggy Bess, sad the stock market's voice is louder than ours. Too little, too late. If you did not watch my earlier video on 28, the stock market will be your voice tomorrow, because ultimately the stock market's going to go down. It's going to go down because of the Temple Doom's rejection of Mnuchin's $1.8 trillion offer. It's hopefully, and I don't wish negative stock prices on anyone, but it's hopeful that a fall in the stock market will wake this president up to realize you need to do this by executive order. Nancy Schlockley never thought the president would let anyone guide him through this. He had a mind of his own. He needs to listen to people now. Pat Ferreira, I'm so sick of all this. Johnny Argo, of course not. It's a game they're all playing. It's called Dragging It Out. James Bernard, when Nancy did not release the second check on time, the games began. People saw this. I mean, people saw problems in games when our FPUC expired in July. Remember, they scheduled your FPUC, your Enhanced Unemployment Benefits, to expire in July when they're on vacation. They literally wrote a bill to expire while they're on vacation, knowing that there would be no one around in town to not let it expire. And it did. And guess what? It expired. And then when they came back to town after the vacation, what do? They're like, you know what? We'll get to it when we have some time. Well, it's now October. They still never got to do it. How about there's an extra checks? You were supposed to get multiple checks in the first stimulus package. What do? They took them out. It's all about not giving us anything. And tonight, it's a lot of blame game. So go to the Funniest channel, subscribe, because Purple Power is up next, and I'm going to guide you through how to really navigate this hot mess express in a time in which a lot of people are blaming each other. Also, like this video. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay in LA for more.